Well, welcome back to the Art of the Turnaround. We're halfway through the process, I guess, putting it simply. Internally, the company is looking good, but now you have to look outside the company. This is where it becomes really tricky.
Well, the decline is flattened, so it's a little bit premature to say it's looking good, but all the parties that are involved feel there is a change is taking place
Within the company.
within the company.
Okay.
And the most important now is to communicate that to the outsiders who have potential veto power on whether you survive beyond that point.
And who are those outsiders?
The outsiders are the customers, your critical suppliers, and the bank. The bank is kind of in our camp anyway because we've been communicating with them all the time. And also, I used to practice communicating with the customers and the suppliers. So when we had the meetings with them, they kind of knew the background. They knew what the history of the company was. So they were kind of leaning in to the whole process of accepting the turnaround.
So the bank is half on your side. The tricky bit is the suppliers and the customers.
Yes.
Are they adversaries? Would that be?
No, they have something to lose. Changing suppliers is, for a customer to change a supplier is a major undertaking. And they may be going from the frying pan into the fire.
Okay, so who do you talk to first? When you've got those three outside parties, bank, supplier, customer, investors, who do you talk to first?
Suppliers, because they feed your company. And if they decide that you are not in a strong financial position, they'll put you on COD, which is cash on delivery, which then can completely eviscerate your cash and put you in a very, very difficult position.
And how quickly can they kill you off?
Very quickly, if they suddenly said, everything we shipped you, you've got to pay now,
Right.
and give you no terms at all to pay, you've basically cut off your cash flow.
And you've turned around 34 companies. Has that ever been the case where they have just cut off the lifeline?
They've threatened to, but that's where these critical meetings come into place, where you go and visit them and discuss what you've accomplished. And it kind of goes back to, particularly with the bank, Mark Twain's quote, where he said, don't tell me about the return on my money, tell me about the return of my money.
Yeah.
And so everybody is focused about protecting their position. The customer doesn't want to lose a supplier and have to find a new one, which is sometimes, if it's a technical product, can be a very complex process.
So it's a precarious place talking to suppliers. You have to win them round.
Yes, you have to absolutely convince them that there is limited risk and that action has been taken in the company that they can see, and you can communicate the action that you've taken, and they're not exposed to risk. And also the fact that in many cases, the company still owes the supplier a significant amount of money. And so it's arranging for giving them confidence that that money will be paid, plus there is a continuation of business.
And if you don't have the cash, then what?
They won't ship. They won't ship, the company dies.
And how do you get around that?
You have to convince them that it is still valuable for them. You're still a valuable customer to them. And the other little leverage is the fact that you frequently owe them money right now. So if they put you on COD and they put you out of business, then they lose whatever you currently owe them. So you have some leverage, but they don't want to lose any more money. They may have already written off what you owe them. So now they've had enough. They don't want to have any more risk. You already owe them $300,000. I don't want you to owe me any more money. And so anything I give you, I want you to pay for.
And somehow you've persuaded these suppliers to go with you because you've turned around these 34 companies.
Yes. And in fact, some of them are the same suppliers, which makes it even a lot easier because they remember the last time that I came to the company and they knew that I'd paid off not only current bills, but also paid off the past debt. So I actually used that as I did it for many years and go back to the same suppliers and they'd say, oh, yes, we know who you are. We'll certainly go along with it. So as the years went by, I gained, and then I also used other suppliers as a reference. So I'd say in this company, I used this supplier. We owed them $400,000. We paid that, and then we paid current. And so I used them as a reference.
So the longer you're in the game, the easier it is for you.
Yes, for me to negotiate it as the sort of honest broker.
So if the supplier can hold you to ransom or can, cut off your lifeline, does it then follow that you can then turn to your customers and cut them off?
Yes, or they can decide that they've had enough and they can go to another supplier. But the suppliers also have, it's a risky game because you owe them money and they want to get that money back. So you're in debt to your suppliers because you haven't been paying them because you're in trouble. So it's a very interesting poker game.
Yeah.
And it's very enjoyable actually to bring all the pieces together satisfactorily. And after I'd done many of these, it became almost a process. The strange part was that when I worked in the aerospace industry, some of the same suppliers got to recognize me beforehand. So when I go back to them, they'd say, well, you again? And I said, yes, similar situation as the last one. And they said, fine, the last one worked out really well.
Right, so you're a known quantity.
It actually built some credibility.
It's a really precarious place to be.
It is, but I'm, part of my sort of makeup is the Houdini makeup that, put me in a box, put the chains around, throw me in the Thames, and I'll show you how I can get out. And I think that was the enjoyment when I really look at it, was these intractable box canyon type situations where I had to really think and I had to come up with some innovative way, persuasive way of keeping all the parties together when their natural instinct was to break apart.
In the book, you say honesty at this point is crucial. Why?
It is the foundation of your relationship. And if you're not completely honest, then you have a chance that the people you're dealing with will see that you're not honest, and every support and credibility they give you in the future will be jeopardized.
And critically, honesty with the supplier, the customer, the bank, and investors, with all of them.
All of them. How bad the situation is and what you have done to correct it so far, to give them a sense of security in the future. So it's absolute honesty that you have to portray.
Yeah, I'm fascinated you say honest, because I think those not in the game would say you have to kind of dress up the show, put your best foot forward, and maybe just tweak the good points and leave out the bad points. Why is honesty so important?
Because if they find out later, your entire credibility shot. You have one chance to impress them. And if you don't give them correct information that they find out later, then your whole credibility is shot.
So don't sugarcoat the pill at all.
At all. Just basically say where you've come from, say why it got to that situation, what you've done about it, and what the future looks like.
What if they find that pill too bitter to swallow?
Then that's your job to persuade them and to stay there until they are convinced.
What if they're not convinced, Mike?
I was lucky enough to be in a position, I never had someone that I couldn't convince. When you actually explain and say, this is the way it is, sometimes there's a sense of relief. Sometimes they are really alarmed that it was that bad and they were that close to the cliff, but now we've moved away from the cliff. So there is a sort of almost a sense of relief that, okay, they know there's a danger and they know there's a problem, but at least they know it. Before, it wasn't transparent.
It was an unknown quantity.
Unknown quantity, and their imagination ran wild, and they had, because there wasn't good communication with the three stakeholders that are critical.
You know you're being honest with them. How do they know you're being honest with them?
Your voice, your demeanor, actual facts that can be verified. You actually create a platform that they can verify. And once you've done that, and once you've revealed, and also you reveal something that they don't know, that you've found out, that you share with them. So now you're in the same, you're the same group. You're not on the other side, and you kind of co-opt them.
How do you know they're being honest with you?
I don't. And in some cases, they're not.
Oh.
But at this particular point, I'm just trying to get them to continue to do business, continue to supply, continue to send us orders, and the bank to continue offering us a line of credit. Don't overpromise, under-promise, over-deliver, and be honest. Explain how bad the situation was. And sometimes they gasp. They didn't know how bad it was.
And yet they don't take fright and run away.
No.
That is why speed is of the essence at the outset, because
Yes.
they are leaning in. The clock is ticking for them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They haven't been paid. Should they make the next shipment? If they don't make the next shipment, the company will stop. They won't get the money they're owed. So in the background, all this assessment is being done by them. The customer, you're late delivering the product to the customer. They're now questioning your survival. So they're looking around for potential alternates. And so that's where you must strike with the iron's hot.
Is this where you get the biggest buzz? The bit that seems to me like one with most jeopardy.
Yeah, I think so. I really do. I mean, there are two times that I get extreme buzz. One is the first day when I go in there and the assessment and how rapidly I can assess how bad things are. And that, it sounds rather strange, but to get right to the bottom quickly and feel confident that you can do something about it is very rewarding.
How big a factor is a company's technology when you have to deal with a turnaround? It is a major factor, or is it just another factor?
It's a major factor.
Yeah.
It sends the message to the employees that there is a future. Utilizing technology, you can dramatically change people's jobs. And given technology, when you've reduced employees significantly, technology can fill that gap. So when the company started getting in trouble, they had 4 people doing a job. Now you've had a reduction in force because you had to. The only way you can cover those gaps is with technology. So now a single person can do multiple jobs, and they can communicate, and they have technology to communicate. So it's a great foundation for the future during the turnaround, where you're building a technology platform for the future. And a lot of the disenchantment is young employees come in and they're asked to do a job, and they say, well, show me where the IAP for doing that is. They say, no, you fill in the paper. They said, I'm not going to work in that environment, and they leave. So all the companies now are saying how hard it is to find employees. It's hard to find them if you create an environment where they have to step back 20 years in technology.
Why don't these companies just invest in kit? I know a lot of companies do invest in kit.
But nowhere near the level that they could.
Because why? Because of cost?
No, because
Phobia?
Technology is changing so fast. And you have an odd situation where most people who are running these companies, most CEOs, have less knowledge about technology than their 9-year-old daughter. And when their computer at work doesn't work, they call their 9-year-old daughter who says, Dad, Control-Alt-Delete. I've shown you this many times before. And so you have a generation that really grew up with a lot less technology and a lot less technology in a company, so that in many cases they don't know what technology is available and they don't know how to implement it within their company.
So if you go into a company and you see paper, you know there's something wrong with that company.
No, I know there's a massive opportunity for improvement. And right now, the one thing I look at is on that paper is data. If it's sitting on a piece of paper or in a PDF, it has no value. It's flat. But sitting on that piece of paper is an absolutely wonderful array of data that if it was captured and put in a cloud environment, the analytical capability of being able to access that data rather than having it sit flat with no one able to access it changes the entire dynamics of the use of technology. And this is what companies now are doing with big data, with machine learning. The machine can only learn if you put the data in. So if it's on a piece of paper, it's a dead end. So younger people understand this actually far more than the managers and the people that run the company. They know that a piece of paper with information on it is worthless. If that was put into an electronic document, then you can take that data, combine it, use the technology to come up with answers that you would never be able to do through paper. So there's a transition happening, and it's very exciting to see younger people absolutely confront and challenge the Neanderthal attitude of companies. And I love it. I mean, it gives me immense pleasure, and I actually instigate some of this insurrection myself because I really enjoy challenging companies that do not want to accept that the world has changed and it's never going to go back. It's only going to go forward. And the other part, it's going forward faster now than it ever has. You almost can't teach technology because by the time you've published the book, it's out of date. So it's a constant process that's increasing, and it is a little destabilizing because you have to be constantly looking at what is available today. It might not have been available yesterday.
Which makes me wonder if your 10 steps go out of date pretty quickly.
No,
That's the same template.
No, it's not. It's a totally different template. And it's a process, and it's what we talked about earlier, having a controlled process of doing things. Incorporation of technology, incorporating the data, and if you incorporate the data faster, you're actually going to have better financial results because you get them more quickly, you get them more accurately, and there'll be less of the maneuvering that has traditionally been done in finance.
I guess the better the technology, the less the need for what you call the Department for Corrections.
Yeah, I think that is an absolute critical element. The Department of Corrections was always an entertaining commentary on companies and particular areas of companies where they'd never seen a department that really had no value if give you an example of a quality department. If the product was made correctly first time, there was no need for the quality department. So, but because it wasn't made correctly, it had to be checked. So there's an entire department that didn't actually add any value, but was there as the sort of official policeman before the product went out to the customer. They had to make sure that it was absolutely correct.
Well, I think it's quite reassuring to have a Department for Quality Control, let's call it.
It has actually no value if you move quality back to when it's originally made and you make it right the first time and can show that you've made it right the first time. And in one of my manufacturing plants, we actually eliminated the quality department and we went to a very large aerospace company, local one, I won't say the name, and we got them to approve not inspecting the parts in final inspection because we could show with technology that the parts were made correctly every single time.
But isn't that something just specific to the manufacturing companies?
No, because you look at all the jobs where a supervisor checks, a manager checks, they don't actually contribute anything themselves, but they're checking what other people do. So wherever you have this sort of checking process, you have to go back, not in all cases, but you go back to where it originated from and find out where it went wrong in the first place.
But to err as human, I mean, you're not going to get everything right all the time, so that you don't need a Department for Corrections or Quality Control, surely.
Yes, you can. And you can actually completely prove to make sure things have done. You have to simplify. You have to have a very robust process. You have to have adherence to the process, and you do process control rather than the fire service at the end, which is quality control. And I've done this in probably 6 companies that I've owned myself, And we have had 100% quality that we've delivered to the customer every single time. Now, it involves technology, it involves investment, but it is so much less costly than having a group of people in the company checking what should have been done right the first time.
Okay, so you've almost got everything in place. You've gone through pretty much all the steps. You must almost be near the finishing tape.
You're very close, but there is one last step that is really important.
We'll save that for the next podcast. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for listening to The Art of the Turnaround. If you love this podcast, please like and subscribe. You can follow the show on Instagram and TikTok at The Art of the Turnaround. You can follow Mike Dunlop on LinkedIn or his website, theartoftheturnaround.com. This podcast was produced by Cadence 3 Studios. Kate Waters was our producer. Alex Dunlop was the story editor. Spencer Matches was the projects editor. April Bricker was our editor-in-chief. Todd Arbuckle designed our show art. Andrew Kindred is our audio engineer. Benjamin Marks composed the music. The Art of the Turnaround is based on the book by Mike Dunlop and hosted by Alex Dunlop.